Is it Orasur?
It's Orasur, isn't it?
Oh no!
It
Look.
was, you know what? Oh, it was so hot. It was like being slapped in the face after reading that.
I'm so glad I got that prediction off right before this chapter.
Yeah. Yes, it was so well timed. Oh.
Look, against the prediction,
Mhm.
and I put it in the log, by the way. I put it in the log that I officially predict that it's Orasur. Against the prediction, Sanderson did state in the first book that Renaud preferred not to get involved with the plans of the heist. He only wanted to fulfill his role as Renaud and nothing else, right?
Yeah, right.
But still,
so it seems too obvious. Now, I don't know. I don't know. Like, okay, when I say too obvious, it seems very plausible that it's Orasur. That's what I mean.
He's the only one that doesn't know things he should know.
Yeah, it's like it is Brandon Sanderson is waving this fact in front of us now. And I don't know whether it's a double bluff or not. But it seems hard to get past. It's like, okay, now we know it's a sit.
Okay, look. Maybe Sanderson's just doing it so that he can remind the readers what's up with the journal. You know, for folks who haven't read the first book or something. Maybe it's purely that. No, it's Orasur.
It's Orasur. But also, okay, with that being said, do we like this Kandra? Also, what is this Kandra here for? Like,
okay. I mean, the predictions that I was making before about if no other Kandra has been an animal before, and therefore no other Kandra has ever had an opportunity to develop their own personality, and therefore Orasur might go rogue, that could still apply, even if this is another Kandra who has been ordered to harm her in some way.
Exactly.
In which case he could betray, in which case he could betray the original master in favor of Vin. The problem is, if he has to come clean and be like, hey, so I killed Orasur, that's still gonna cause some, well, I don't know, would it cause some damage to Vin, who never really liked Orasur?
Yeah, exactly. That's also what I was wondering, because I'm like, she would probably be like, you know what, he ate Kelsia, you know, because that's her favorite line, you know, when it comes to him. So, so maybe it'll make her feel better, but then again, also she will, you know, we know Vin, she'll be like betrayed and and want to kill him.
You told me I can't trust you, so I'm not going to trust you.
Yeah, I'm never going to trust you.
Yeah, instead of, you told me I can't trust you, therefore I'm going to trust you.
Yeah. I really can't handle this mystery for much longer. Okay, we can't do this. Okay, can I just put that out into the universe? We can't do this for much longer. I need to know. It's killing me. So I'm hoping we find out after this chapter. Please.
Yeah.
Do you think we will?
No, I think it's going to be a while.
Oh my god. Because yeah.
By the way, we haven't heard from the Watcher in a while.
Yeah, that's true.
But we also got Ellen's first My Fair Lady.
Yes, we did.
That's fun.
He feels pretty. So
pretty and witty, right?
Yes, exactly. I enjoyed it. It works. I think it looks good on you, Ellen. I really do. So we'll get to that.
But no Sazed yet.
No Sazed, no. No Sazed.
Bursting in at supersonic speed.
Exactly.
Like the Flash.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait for the Sazed Tinville discussion, or like, you know, them speaking to each other. That's going to be an interesting dynamic.
I agree.
Yeah. But we don't get that this chapter.
No. Now, with all of that said, hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. For this particular series, I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Matt Darn Kitty.
Dorkus and I are both going into the story completely new with almost no knowledge of the story or world.
Each segment, we intend to cover what happens in each new chapter and discuss our experience along the way.
Hold on to your butts, because this is Ascension Unleashed, a blind read-through, and today we'll be covering Chapter 16!
Chapter 16! Yes, he was the one who fueled the rumors after that. I could never have done what he did, convincing and persuading the world that he was indeed the hero. I don't know if he believed it, but he made others think that he must be the one.
Right. So, it's not all Quan.
No, but at the same time, it seems like Quan is putting a tremendous amount of, not quite blame, but action and moral culpability upon Alendi, which doesn't totally jive with my vision of Alendi. Yeah, from the logbook. Who was very much like, people keep telling me this, and I think they have the wrong man.
Very reluctant. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got the sense that it wasn't until closer to the end of his journey that he started to think, I don't know why Quan betrayed me. Surely, even if I'm not the hero, it's important that I try anyway. And that would have been after everyone seems to have fallen in line, so to speak, with the idea.
Yeah. So maybe this is Quan coping.
Yeah. It makes sense that Quan would be a flawed character. They all are, in a way. So maybe a little Quan cope.
And I mean, look, he does also allow for Alendi not to have believed it himself, but still having done it, maybe by mistake or just through his actions, just made it seem more likely. Because he says, I don't know if he himself believed it, but he made others think that he must be the one. He made others believe it. That, I don't know how you do that without intention. I don't know if he's ascribing intention to that. Is he saying that Alendi deceived them, was part of the deception himself, or just by mistake?
I don't necessarily think he's impugning deception, just that he did a lot of work. But what I want to know, Quan, is how much work you put in to convincing Alendi that he was the hero of ages.
Because that's what you're trying to cope with, I think.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. Oh, okay, it was kind of. Yeah. Coping Quan.
Indeed. Vin rarely used her quarters. Ellen had assigned her spacious rooms, which was perhaps part of the problem. She'd spent her childhood sleeping in nooks, lairs, or alleys. Having 3 separate chambers was a bit daunting. It didn't really matter. During her time awake, she was with either Ellen or the Mists. Her rooms existed for her to sleep in, or in this case, for her to make a mess in. She sat on the floor in the center of her main chamber. Ellen's steward, concerned that Vin didn't have any furniture, had insisted on decorating her rooms. This morning, Vin had pushed some of this aside, bunching up rugs and chairs next to one wall so that she could sit on the cool stones with her book. It was the first real book she had ever owned, though it was merely a collection of pages bound loosely at one side. And that suited her fine. The simple binding had made the book that much easier to pull apart. Automatically, you know what book this is.
Yeah, you're like, okay. Well, yeah, and it is. We know Vin's first book because, yeah, she was not a reader.
Right. And she's doing the smart, pragmatic thing, the thing that I would have been doing. I love seeing characters do the things that I myself would do were I in their situation.
Yeah, the piles, everything. I'm like, yes, let's go. Go.
Yes.
Smart Vin. Let's do it.
She sat amid stacks of paper. It was amazing how many pages there were in the book once she had separated them. Vin sat next to one pile, looking over its contents. She shook her head, then crawled over to another pile. She leafed through the pages, eventually selecting one. Sometimes I wonder if I'm going mad. Perhaps it is due to the pressure of knowing that I must somehow bear the burden of an entire world. Perhaps it is caused by the death I have seen, the friends I have lost, the friends I've been forced to kill. Either way, I sometimes see shadows following me, dark creatures that I don't understand nor wish to understand. Are they perhaps some figment of my overtaxed mind?
Remember that?
Yes, I did immediately. I'm so glad she does too.
Yeah, this is definitely familiar to us all. It's part of what we fixate on. So it's great again to just have the character do this. We've been talking about it. So to finally get this payoff is great.
And this is proof it's real, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I know by the end of this what she determines to believe.
Yeah.
But this is proof, right?
Yeah, it's proof. Sorry, there is enough proof. Like, what do you want? There's nothing more we can actually do. You can't be like, oh, well, that's a coincidence anyway, and continue. Like, you can't.
Yeah,
the stakes are too high.
Exactly, and he is defining the exact same experience that Vin is having.
It's like, I understand you could, but I mean, you could try and convince yourself, oh, because I've read this, my mind is making this happen. But you know what? Let us overreact when the world is at stake, guys. Let's do that.
I think that's not entirely unreasonable. Vin sat for a moment rereading the pages. Then she moved the sheet over to another pile. Orasor lay on the side of the room, head on paws, eyeing her. Mistress, I have been watching you work for the last 2 hours, and will admit that I am thoroughly confused. What is the point of all of this? Vin crawled over to another stack of pages.
I thought you didn't care how I spent my time.
I don't, but I do get bored.
And annoyed, apparently.
I like to understand what is going on around me. I like that line from Akandra.
But now I'm obviously, having read further, rereading this now, I'm like, this is very characteristic of a different character. So I'm starting to notice qualities that weren't there initially. Like, now his curiosity or his boredom or his annoyance is different to me. It hits different. So.
Is he asking in earnest, or is he fishing for information?
Yeah.
Vin shrugged, gesturing toward the stack of papers.
This is the Lord Ruler's logbook. Well, actually, it's not the logbook of the Lord Ruler we knew, but the logbook of the man who should have been the Lord Ruler.
Should have been? You mean he should have conquered the world, but didn't?
No, I mean he should have been the one who took the power at the Well of Ascension. This man, the man who wrote this book, we don't actually know his name, was some kind of prophesied hero. Or everyone thought he was. Anyway, the man who became the Lord Ruler, Rashek, was this hero's Pac-Man. Don't you remember us talking about this back when you were imitating Renault?
Oh, that line!
Oh, does he? And he's imitating Renault right now, kind of, if you know what I'm saying.
Essentially, he should be able to remember. My alarm bells just were so loud that second.
It was difficult not to just immediately message you and be like, what? Because we had just spoken about it, and I was dying to read more, so I'll wait. And
seriously, just kismet in terms of the timing here.
And it was so, and also it's so soon in the beginning of this chapter as well. So you're like, and then you have to continue because it was just right there, just in your face. That's what I mean. I feel like it hit me in the face, and I was like, okay. And then it's like, anyway, moving on. You're just like, there is no payoff.
and it just doesn't occur to her, and I don't blame her for it not occurring to her. But from this point on, every interaction for us is suspect.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me feel better about the crew, but then also I'm just like, wait. And then again, reiterating, I really hope that this Kandra is actually like liking her in spite of himself, or doing this for his own purposes. Who knows?
Gone rogue.
Yes, please be gone rogue.
Orasor nodded. I recall you briefly mentioning it.
And sorry, just the fact that he says, I recall you briefly mentioning it, and then she just goes on. You're like, hello? This is quite a big deal. But she's focused on what she's doing, I suppose.
And we know that Kelsier had a copy of the logbook made for each member of the crew, but Renault did want to be left out of crew business, just Renault business.
Yeah, it makes sense that, like you said, for this to make sense of it, if it turns out that it is Orosur, still, it makes sense he would kind of put that aside, like, oh, it's just human stuff, whatever. It's not really to do with my contract. My contract is, practical. So
yeah, but I feel like I might pull my Rashek is the Lord Ruler prediction again and talk myself out of the proper prediction.
No, I don't know. This one really feels
strong.
Right?
Yeah, it feels strong to me.
Yeah. But also but the only way I would talk us out of it is that it's just a bluff. Like he's leading us there. He wants us to believe it. He wants us to expect it.
I hope it's a red herring.
Yeah, there we go. Like let it be a red herring. I don't know. Damn it, I can't. Anyway, we'll find out at some point. Hopefully.
I recall you briefly mentioning it.
Well, this is the book Kelsey and I found when we infiltrated the Lord Ruler's palace. We thought it was written by the Lord Ruler, but it turns out it was written by the man the Lord Ruler killed, the man whose place he took.
Yes, mistress. Now why exactly are you tearing it to pieces?
I'm not. I just took off the binding so I could move the pages around. It helps me think.
I see. And what exactly are you looking for? The Lord Ruler is dead, mistress. Last I checked, you killed him.
What am I looking for? Ghosts in the mist?
She read the words on the page slowly. It isn't a shadow. This dark thing that follows me. The thing that only I can see. It isn't really a shadow. It is blackish and translucent, but it doesn't have a shadow-like solid outline. It's insubstantial, wispy and formless, like it's made out of a black fog. Or mist, perhaps.
It watched him, too.
She remembered reading the words over a year before, thinking that the hero must have started to go mad. With all the pressures on him, who would have been surprised? Now she thought she understood the nameless logbook author better. She knew he was not the Lord Ruler, and could see him for what he might have been. Uncertain of his place in the world, but forced into important events, determined to do the best he could. Idealistic in a way. This had me thinking she's almost describing herself in a way, but also she's almost describing Elend in a way.
Yeah.
And I know we've already had the discussion about how I think neither of us think that Vin is the hero of ages at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
she's involved.
She's involved, forced into events, although technically she wasn't forced into it. She chose to be a part of Kelsier's crew. Whereas Elend, I don't necessarily think chose to be king, that they had made him king, and he's certainly idealistic in a way. And I think back to the moment where I briefly wondered if the Watcher was Alendi, which, to be clear, I don't think that's the case. But then I considered, like, the neurons went from Alendi to Watcher as a romantic rival to Elend to, well, I don't know. It's just all jumbled in my mind, but there's something important about the way she's characterizing Alendi right now.
Yeah.
And that characterization will be challenged probably by Sazed's charcoal drawing from Quan's perspective.
Yeah, we have that. We already have that just from our epigraph. We already have seen a difference between what Quan is saying and what Alendi was saying. So that conflict is yet to be fleshed out.
Right.
Hurry, Sazed! Just a thing about the forcing. It's not exactly that, like you said, it's not that Vin was forced into it. And yeah, I guess we could attribute being forced into it by the crew in terms of Elend. But it's also their values as characters is what also forced them to go to do what they're doing. It's just they had no other choice according to themselves, both Inland and Vin, like because of the people that they care about. Vin because she cared.
True.
Yeah. So it's kind of like they were forced by their ideals, by what they care about.
It's not a game when the people I love are in danger.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I see there, that there is still some kind of force, but it's just not, it's not practical, it's emotional.
Right. And the mist spirit had chased him. What did it mean? What did seeing it imply for her? She crawled over to another pile of pages. She'd spent the morning scanning through the logbook for clues about the mist creature, but was having trouble digging out much beyond these two familiar passages. She made piles of pages that mentioned anything strange or supernatural. One pile had pages that referenced the mist spirit. Another was for references to the deepness. This last one, ironically, was both the largest and least informative of the group. The logbook author had a habit of mentioning the deepness, but not saying much about it.
So relatable for me. Like, yes. Like, you know what, Vin? We were this frustrated with even when we did our mind map of the thing. Okay. Doesn't tell us much.
Yep. And I love the mess she's making. That's so Vin. It's endearing still. She's like a raccoon. Not a raccoon. She's like a possum.
A possum. Okay.
Am I wrong?
I don't know how possums behave.
Very well then. The deepness was dangerous. That much was clear. It had ravaged the land, slaying thousands. The monster had sown chaos wherever it stepped, bringing destruction and fear, but the armies of mankind had been unable to defeat it. Only the Terrace prophecies in the Hero of Ages had offered any hope.
If only he had been more specific,
Vin thought with frustration, rifling papers. The tone of the logbook was more melancholy than informative. It was something that the hero had written for himself to stay sane, to let him put his fears and hopes down on paper. Ellen said he wrote for similar reasons sometimes. To Vin, it seemed a silly method of dealing with problems. With a sigh, she turned to the last stack of papers, the one with pages she had yet to study. She lay down on the stone floor and began to read, searching for useful information. It took time. Not only was she a slow reader, but her mind kept wandering. She'd read the logbook before, and oddly, hints and phrases from it reminded her of where she'd been at the time, more than a year and a world away in Felice, still recovering from her near death at the hands of a Steel Inquisitor, forced to spend her days in the role of inexperienced country noblewoman Valette Renault. ADHD Vin.
But also, it's just very emotional to go through all of that.
But also that.
Yeah,
the nostalgia.
Yeah, the nostalgia that, oh, this is where I was. Oh, like, but yeah, I guess she's been doing this for a while as well, so her attention is not really easy to wrangle at this point.
Yeah. She should get some sleep, because apparently no one ever sleeps in Luthenhell.
Exactly.
Back then, she still hadn't believed in Kelsier's plan to overthrow the Final Empire. She'd stayed with the crew because she valued the strange things they offered her, friendship, trust, and lessons in allomancy, not because she accepted their goals. She would never have guessed where that would lead her, to balls and parties, to actually growing, a bit, to become the noblewoman she had pretended to be. But that had been a farce, a few months of make-believe. She forced her thoughts away from the frilly clothing and the dances. She needed to focus on practical matters.
And is this practical? Studying things I barely comprehend? Fearing a threat nobody else even cares to notice?
She sighed, folding her arms under her chin as she lay on her stomach. What was she really worried about? That the deepness would return? All she had were a few phantom visions in the mist, things that could, as Ellen implied, have easily been fabricated by her overworked mind. More important was another question, assuming that the deepness was real. What did she expect to do about it? She was no hero, general, or leader.
Also, the way that it goes immediately, we had a page or two ago, didn't he say figment of my overtaxed mind? Then she literally went overworked mind a couple pages later in her mind. So it's like,
Yep.
it's like, ding, 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 come on, Vin. And it takes her a while, but she does get there. She has to make the decision, but obviously she needs to read on for this to happen. As we shall. Also, okay, she was no hero, general, or leader. Look, we're saying that it's not her because we think it's too obvious that it's her, right?
Right.
That's the only reason that, like, because it's pretty obvious she's special, and like there's a lot that points towards her being the hero of ages. But I don't know. Am I correct in saying we think it's a bait and switch?
100%. I think that's what we think. It
And
is too obvious. It's too on the nose.
Mm.
And I expect that everyone else, I think the crew or Kelsier's religion, will think, well, she's the hero of ages. She must be. And then it feeds into the events of this time will mirror themselves from Alendi and Quan. So they will think she's the hero of ages, and I can't bring myself to believe it right now.
But here it is. Here is the bait. We're waiting for the switch.
Yeah.
Oh, Kelsier, we could use you now.
My heart.
Yeah, you know what? I don't get tired of the reminders of Kelsier. He's never died as a character. He's a constant presence.
Yep.
And I'm okay with that.
And I'm so curious what he would be doing if he were still around.
Yeah. Do you think he would take Vin seriously?
To be honest, yes.
Same.
Yeah.
I feel like he would believe Vin.
Yeah, I think he might like have no clue what to do, no real idea of what to do. And okay, if we imagined a version of this where Kelsier survived and was in this book, she would be thinking these things and he wouldn't know what to do. And then it would cause Vin to think he didn't believe her. And it would cause some sort of disillusionment in Kelsier from Vin. And that would be the story.
Writer's mind coming up. I don't know. I didn't think about that in terms of, what would happen with the characters. I was just thinking more, yeah, she would want to go and investigate more, and he would not want to encourage her one way or the other, and then she would just go and investigate. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, he would probably also be overprotective of her, maybe push the daughter-father relationship a bit too hard. And then Ellen would probably be there trying to get Kelsier's approval, which would be tough. And then...
Well, we don't have to rewrite it. Don't worry.
No. I'm very satisfied with what we have here. To be clear, it's kind of a neat what-if scenario to imagine. Yeah. Folks in the chat, what do you think would have happened if Kelsier didn't die? Let us know.
We would be happy because Kelsier didn't die. That was horrible.
Kelsier had been a man beyond convention, a man who had been able to defy reality. He'd thought that by giving his life to overthrow the Lord Ruler, he would secure freedom for the Ska. But what if his sacrifice had opened the way for a greater danger? Something so destructive that the Lord Ruler's oppression was a preferable alternative. She finally finished the page, then placed it on the stack of those that contained no useful information. Then she hesitated. She couldn't even remember what she'd just read. She sighed, picking the page back up, looking at it again. How did Elend do it? He could study the same books over and over again, but for Vin it was hard to... She paused.
I must assume that I'm not mad. I cannot, with any rational sense of confidence, continue my quest if I do not believe this. The thing following me must, therefore, be real.
So, first off, I have to say, I so identify with Vin in this moment, because I'm like Elend in that I like to read textbooks and stuff. But man alive, do I have to reread the same paragraphs over and over again when my mind wanders.
Yeah.
because, well, ADHD,
yeah.
but
yeah, where you're just like, huh? What did I just read? Yeah.
Oh man. She sat up. She only vaguely remembered this section of the logbook. The book was organized like a diary with sequential but dateless entries. It had a tendency to ramble, and the hero had been fond of droning on about his insecurities. This section had been particularly dry. But there in the middle of his complaining was a tidbit of information. I believe that it would kill me if it could. There is an evil feel to the thing of shadow and fog, and my skin recoils at its touch. Yet it seems limited in what it can do, especially to me. That's very important, especially because we know that not everyone sees these things.
Mm-hmm. What
And
does it mean? Yeah, especially to him. Like, well, it's done something to Vin.
yeah.
Hmm.
But what are these limitations and why are there limitations?
Yes, tell us, be more specific.
This raises many questions. It can affect this world, however. The knife it placed in Fedek's chest proves that much. I'm still not certain which was more traumatic for him, the wound itself or seeing the thing that did it to him. Reshek whispers that I stabbed Fedek myself, for only Fedek and I can give witness to that night's events. However, I must make a decision. I must determine that I am not mad. The alternative is to admit that it was I who held that knife. Somehow, knowing Reshek's opinion on the matter makes it much easier for me to believe the opposite.
Right. So knowing Reshek's opinion, meaning Reshek thinks it's me that killed him. The opposite is I didn't. Right.
Exactly.
Look at me. I followed his logic. One more note. We haven't seen it pick up anything yet. And even if it was Alendi who stabbed Fedek, maybe he was possessed.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we were thinking, right?
Mm-hmm. Some sort of, yeah, he could have been possessed by this thing. What happens when it takes over your whole body? You know?
I mean,
Does it just
we also heard
you?
we heard in the last chapter that there were people in the mist during the day saying,
Mm-hmm.
"Come out, it's not harming us."
Yeah.
We speculated about undeath.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but then that would mean that he is then released afterwards. So anyway, speculation concluded.
The next page continued on about Reshek, and the next several entries contained no mention of the mist spirit. But Vin found even these few paragraphs exciting.
He made a decision. I have to make the same one.
She'd never worried that she was mad, but she had sensed some logic in Ellen's words. Now she rejected them. The mist spirit was not some delusion brought on by a mixture of stress and memories of the logbook. It was real. That didn't mean the deepness was returning, nor did it mean that Luthadel was in any sort of supernatural danger, but both were possibilities. She set this page with the two others that contained concrete information about the mist spirit, then turned back to her studies, determined to pay closer attention to her reading.
Go, Vin, go!
Yes. Good decision. Good choice.
I was expecting you to be like, good Vin, smart Vin. I was waiting for it, but you didn't.
Good Vin, smart Vin.
There we go. Because as I was reading it, I'm like, I have like a Dorkus commentary going. Anyway.
The armies were digging in. Elend watched from atop the wall as his plan, vague though it was, began to take form. Straff was making a defensive perimeter to the north, holding the canal route back in relatively short distance to Urtro, his home city and capital. Set was digging into the west of the city, holding the Luth-Davin Canal, which ran back to his cannery in Haverfrex. A cannery. That was something Elend wished he had in the city. The technology was newer, perhaps 50 years old, but he'd read of it. The scholars had judged its main use to be that of providing easily carried supplies for soldiers fighting at the fringes of the Empire. They hadn't considered stockpiles for sieges, particularly in Luthadel, but then who would have? I like that there's a cannery. I do vaguely remember an interview of some kind with Brandon Sanderson where he spoke about liking to make some of his fantasy worlds not medieval Europe, but to be fantastic and a little bit timeless in ways. And this is also, we know that there's going to be Mistborn Era 2, which takes place in a more current timeline, let's say, I suppose, which is to say that I've seen the cover art for one of the books and I see skyscrapers. So this is, I think, a slow indication of the industrialization of this world. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I think of the things currently, just in the world itself now, what I did think of was, okay, cannery equals trace metals, things like that. That's where I went with it. But I wasn't thinking of like what's happening next. And but those, again, your insights into Sanderson's lectures and things like that strikes again. I like it.
Yeah. It's fun when little half-remembered things pop in. Even as Elend watched, patrols began to move out from the separate armies. Some went to watch the open ground between the two forces, but others went to secure more canal routes, bridges across the river Channel, and roads leading away from Luthadel. In a remarkably short time, the city felt completely surrounded, cut off from the world, and the rest of Elend's small kingdom. No more moving in or out. The armies were counting on disease, starvation, and other weakening factors to bring Elend to his knees. The siege of Luthadel had begun. It's happening. It's starting.
Yep. There it is. It's look, doesn't make it any, the fact that we knew it was going to happen doesn't make it any easier. It's still scary.
Yep. That's a good thing. For this plan to work, they have to think me desperate. They have to be so sure I'm willing to side with them that they don't consider that I might be working with their enemies too.
Yeah, he's probably desperate anyway. But we are, of course, that we're trying our best here.
Yeah, but again, my biggest concern here is that the council, which he has probably already ceded too much power to, will think he's desperate too. And
it's a faction you can't discount. You can't just leave it out.
In my mind, this makes the assembly more dangerous than Straff or Set.
Yep.
As Elend watched, he noticed someone climbing the steps to the wall. Clubs. The general hobbled over to Elend, who had been standing alone. Congratulations. Looks like you now have a full-blown siege on your hands. Good. It'll give us a little breathing room, I guess, Clubs said. Then he eyed Elend with one of his gnarled looks. You'd better be up to this, kid. I know. You've made yourself the focal point. The Assembly can't break this siege until you meet officially with Straff, and the Kings aren't likely to meet with anyone on the crew other than you. This is all about you. Useful place for a king to be, if he's a good one. Clubs fell silent. Elend kept looking out over the separate armies. The words spoken to him by Tindwell, the terrace woman, still bothered him. You're a fool, Elend ventured. So far, neither of the kings had responded to Elend's requests for a meeting, though the crew was sure that they soon would. His enemies would wait to make Elend sweat a bit. The assembly had called another meeting, probably to try to bully him into releasing them from their earlier proposal. Elend had found a convenient reason to skip the meeting. So so that right there is the evidence that they know that he's being a little sneaky with their agreement. And they aren't happy. Yeah,
and they're trying their own stuff. And okay, I can see he would find a convenient reason to skip. So it's like officially he has not been made aware. So it kind of stalls a bit, but they could be just conspiring. He's letting them conspire, basically. That is him saying, leaving it. It's like, it's gonna fester. You need to nip that.
Yeah, and my big question is, how is he going to meet with Straff to convince him he's on Straff's side without it being an official meeting?
Yeah, that then ends it.
Yeah. He looked at Clubs. And am I a good king, Clubs? In your opinion? The general glanced at him, and Elend saw harsh wisdom in his eyes. I've known worse leaders, but I've also known a hell of a lot better. Elend nodded slowly. I want to be good at this, Clubs. Nobody else is going to look after the ska like they deserve. Set? Straff? They would only make slaves of the people again. I want to be more than my ideas, though. I want to, need to, be a man that others can look to. Clubs shrugged.
Yes. Do it.
Yes. You
Work
got
on it.
that desire. You have that ambition. You're sort of doing the right things. You're working on it, so that's good. But, well, what Clubs here says, Clubs shrugged. My experience has been that the man is usually made by the situation. Kelsier was a selfish dandy until the pitch nearly broke him. He glanced at Ellen. Will this siege be your pitch of Hathsin, Ellen Venture? Love this interaction. This whole interaction with Clubs is great. And that's the question. And Clubs is right. The situation creates the opportunity to rise to the occasion.
Yeah. You're molded. Yes, you're called to greatness by the situation. And the situation thrusts greatness upon you.
And this whole interaction, though, makes me think of that really, really wonderful line in House of the Dragon between Lionel Strong and King Viserys, where Viserys says, have I been a good king, Lionel? I wonder what I would have been like had I been tested. And then Lionel says something to the effect of, many who had been tested wished only to have been spared it. And that is such a powerful scene worth checking out. But it's really wonderful topic to think about.
That you need to be tested
to
grow.
Yeah. But can you be tested if you are constantly seeking out being tested? Like, it's one thing to like study and practice at a thing hoping to improve, but don't send yourself to the pits of Hathsin to try and become a better man, you know?
Yeah. We were talking earlier actually about the force, right? The force, about being forced into a situation by the surrounding events, and having your values force you into something as well. And that's kind of what he's doing here, is the fact that he wants to be more than his ideas. His ideas are kind of forcing him into that, because he still needs, for him to be a good king, he needs to do stuff. Okay, he can't just read. And he wants to be a man worth following. And by doing that, he does have to, if we go back to the way you were talking about it, he does have to send himself to the pits of Hathsin. But the context is also pushing him towards it. It's not that he's just, my life is great, and then he goes and pushes himself into. He's not David Gogginsing it. He's not just doing some crazy stuff.
Yes, he does need to challenge himself. He needs to face his dragons or his demons to grow. Will this siege be your pitch of Hathsin, Ellen Venture? I don't know. Then we'll have to wait and see, I guess. For now, someone wants to speak with you. He turned, nodding down toward the street 40 feet below, where a tall, feminine figure stood in colorful terrace robes. She told me to send you down, Club said. He hesitated, then glanced at Ellen. It isn't often I meet someone who feels they can order me around, and a terrace woman at that. I thought those terrace were all docile and kindly. Ellen smiled. I guess Sazed spoiled us. Club snorted. So much for 1,000 years of breeding, eh? Ellen nodded. You sure she's safe? Yes. Her story checks out. Vin brought in several of the terrace people from the city, and they knew and recognized Tindwell. She's apparently a fairly important person back in her homeland.
I like that, confirmation that it's not that they just continued and carried on whatever. Like, Vin did her due diligence. She still brought people in, to check on this Tindwell character. That's a nice little way of just tying that up. Like, listen, we did check on that. We didn't just let this all happen.
Yeah. Well done. Due diligence. Plus, she had performed ferochemy for him, growing stronger to free her hands. That meant she wasn't a Khandra. Now hold on a second, Ellen. Didn't Orasur say that they couldn't do allomancy, but not actually say anything about ferochemy? Did Vin ask about ferochemy?
Yeah, she did not.
To be fair, I doubt they could do feruchemy if they can't do allomancy. Still,
it's still something you need to ask specifically, because this is how the Kandra, well, how Orasur supposedly operates. You have to ask the exact question. So he's not going to offer that information. So I would still want to ask the specific question.
That meant she wasn't a Kandra. All of it together meant she was trustworthy enough. Even Vin admitted that, although she continued to dislike the terrace woman. Clubs nodded to him, and Elend took a deep breath. Then he walked down the stairs to meet Tindwyl for another round of lessons.
I wondered if there would be a time where Elend... I wondered if Elend was going to use this opportunity to make her come up the stairs to him, but that wasn't today.
Not quite yet, I suppose. No. Although there is a moment where he is forceful, which was good to see. Mm-hmm. And now we get more of Kitta doing Tindwyl. I'm so excited.
Trying. Okay. Today, we will do something about your clothing,
Tindwyl said, closing the door to Elend's study. A plump seamstress with bowl-cut white hair waited inside, standing respectfully with a group of youthful assistants. Elend glanced down at his clothing. It wasn't bad. The suit coat and vest fit fairly well. The trousers weren't as stiff as those favored by imperial nobility, but he was the king now. Shouldn't he be able to set the trends? I don't see what's wrong with it. He held up a hand as Tindwyl began to speak. I know it's not quite as formal as what other men like to wear, but it suits me.
It's disgraceful.
Now I hardly see...
Don't argue with me.
But see, the other day you said that...
Kings don't argue, they command. And part of your ability to command comes from your bearing. Slovenly clothing invites other slovenly habits, such as your posture, which I have already mentioned, I believe.
Elend sighed, rolling his eyes as Tindwyl snapped her fingers. The seamstress and her assistants started unpacking a pair of large trunks. This isn't necessary. I already have some suits that fit more snugly. I wear them on formal occasions.
You're not going to wear suits anymore.
Excuse me? Tindwyl eyed him with a steely gaze, and Elend sighed. Explain yourself, he said, trying to sound commanding.
There you go, Elend.
Yeah, I love this woman.
So like, she didn't say, command me, because that would be a command. She looked at him like, and what you gonna do about it? Come on. It's really, she's doing well.
Yeah. Great interactions. Explain yourself, he said, trying to sound commanding. Tindwyl nodded.
You have maintained the dress code preferred by the nobility, sanctioned by the final emperor. In some respects, this was a good idea. It gave you a connection to the former government and made you seem less of a deviant. Now, however, you're in a different position. Your people are in danger, and the time for simple diplomacy is over. You are at war. Your dress should reflect that.
Yeah, that's good. That's smart. We got Napoleon Venture coming up.
Look at it. He's got to look the part, and she is so right. It really is like, look, we'll get to what Elend thinks of this. It's kind of, he thinks it's a kind of deception, but it's like, this is dress is. It's like, it reminds me of someone saying, oh, well, it's just a social construct. It's like, no, but the social construct still operates, guys. So it's still actually a thing. So yes, you need to use the tools available to you. And this also will help Elend when he does eventually go back to the assembly, because we've just spoken about the assembly being a problem. When he needs to sort that out, because I'm feeling like it's going to be quite a problem. When he needs to go and sort that out, he's got to command that place, because we saw what it was like before, where people are like, oh, dear boy, kind of just relax over there, son. The way that they spoke to him, that is not how it's going to go. So I can't wait for Elend to see. I even have changed in my mind. I'm starting to call him Venture. I can't wait for him to, take hold of that power. Come on.
So I don't think he's going to crumble, though, the moment he meets with Straff, whenever he does. But I kind of feel like he's going to crumble the moment he meets with Straff, whenever he does.
Yeah, Straff is a different ball game. He's not, because it's his father. It's a big deal. The assembly, do you think he'll crumble with the assembly?
So here's sort of the thing. There's what I think will happen and what I feel will happen. I think he might crumble in his first attempt with the assembly. Mm-hmm. I think he will not crumble in his first meeting with Straff.
Okay.
But I feel like it's going to be like inside he will feel crumbling in both cases.
Yeah, in both cases he's going to be fighting against crumbling. But I do agree there will be some crumbling somewhere. He won't get them both right.
Yeah.
Should we put that in the prediction log? Is it big enough? No.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
The seamstress selected a particular outfit, then brought it over to Elend while the assistant set up a changing screen. Elend hesitantly accepted the outfit. It was stiff and white, and the front of the jacket appeared to button all the way up to a rigid collar. All in all, it looked like a uniform, he said, frowning.
Indeed. You want your people to believe that you can protect them? Well, a king isn't simply a lawmaker. He's a general. It is time you began to act like you deserve your title, Ellen Venture.
I'm no warrior. This uniform is a lie.
The first point will soon change. The second is not true. You command the armies of the Central Dominance. That makes you a military man, whether or not you know how to swing a sword. Now, go change. I'm wondering if we're going to get a time where she does not speak to him that way because he won't let her. Or if it's just, she's just going to have the special place where she can speak to him like that. But that's about it. That's as far as it goes. Because she's just Tyndall.
It could invoke quite the emotions in a reader to get the two of them to a place where it's like only she's allowed to speak to him like that anymore. But she doesn't want to speak to him like that anymore because she has grown to respect him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
that might be where that. Yeah, I think that might be where this is headed. If happy ending, and Mistborn was certainly taking some darker turns I didn't expect it to. So Sanderson surprises me sometimes. Elend acceded with a shrug. He walked around the changing screen, pushed aside a stack of books to make room, then disrobed. The new white trousers fit snugly and fell straight around the calves. While there was a shirt, it was completely obscured by the large, stiff jacket, which had military shoulder ornamentation. It had an array of buttons, all of which he noticed were wood instead of metal, as well as a strange shield-like design over the right breast. It seemed to have some sort of arrow, or perhaps spear, emblazoned in it. Stiffness, cut, and design considered, Elend was surprised how well the uniform fit. It's sized quite well, he noted, putting on the belt, then pulling down the bottom of the jacket, which came all the way to his hips.
We got your measurements from your tailor.
Elend stepped around the changing screen, and several assistants approached. One politely motioned for him to step into a pair of shiny black boots, and the other attached a white cape to fastenings at his shoulder. The final assistant handed him a polished hardwood dueling cane and sheath. Elend hooked it onto the belt, then pulled it through a slit in the jacket so it hung outside. That much, at least, he had done before.
Good. Once you have learned to stand up straight, that will be a decent improvement. Now, sit.
Elend opened his mouth to object, but thought better of it. He sat down, and an assistant approached to attach a sheet around his shoulders. She then pulled out a pair of shears. Now, wait, I see where this is going.
Then voice an objection. Don't be vague.
All right, then. I like my hair.
Short hair is easier to care for than long hair, and you have proven that you cannot be trusted in the area of personal grooming.
You aren't cutting my hair, Elend said firmly. Tyndall paused, then nodded. The apprentice backed away, and Elend stood, pulling off the sheet. The seamstress produced a large mirror, and Elend walked forward to inspect himself, and froze. So he was pretty firm about a thing.
That's good. She's rewarding him for that. She knows he's going to change his mind because she knows what it looks like. But she's rewarding him for saying, you're not going to cut my hair. Like, I feel like that's a good way of training him. Just, okay, fine, cool. Let's do it. And
okay, but look, to Ellen's aid, I bet he could pull off like a ponytail or something.
No man bun. No man bun.
Not a man bun. Did not say man bun.
No ponytail either. Okay.
No?
No. Maybe, I suppose you're saying like if he brushed it and made it very a neat ponytail. Like
Yeah. To be clear, I'm thinking like historic ponytail, not modern day ponytail, like a colonial ponytail type situation. Anyway, the seamstress produced a large mirror, and Elend walked forward to inspect himself, and froze. The difference was surprising. All his life, he'd seen himself as a scholar and socialite, but also as a bit of a fool. He was Elend, the friendly, comfortable man with the funny ideas, easy to dismiss, perhaps, but difficult to hate. What did you think of that?
he you know what, you're allowed to have confidence and understand that, yeah, most people don't hate me. At least he didn't say that he's absolutely likable and that makes him narcissistic. It's more like he's like, well, look, people don't hate me, at least. So I found that endearing.
Interesting. Something about this passage made me not like Elend. Which, I already am primed not to, but
yeah. Did you like it
well,
was too confident or what?
I'm not quite sure. I don't want to use the word narcissistic, but that's kind of where I'm leaning. It's just a strange assessment to have of oneself.
You know what I think you might be picking up on is
what?
that it's kind of like having that sort of assessment of yourself is kind of like you did it on purpose, that you've been affecting it. You've been trying to make that impression.
Yeah.
So that you've written yourself that way. It's kind of, that's what I feel like is coming off from it. It's like, I am this kind of person because that's the one that I want to be. I've been trying to be this kind of person. And that comes off as, meh.
Yeah, that, I'm so glad you do this with me. That is exactly what was going on in my mind. Yeah.
So it's not so much this confidence, it's seems disingenuous, seems fake.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. It's kind of like, okay, Ellen, that's kind of weak, bro. It's like you're trying to be a goth or something. It's your aesthetic you're trying to go for. Like, but you know what? He is young and he's coming into himself. So
yeah, just be a person.
Just be a person.
The man he saw now was no dandy of the court. He was a serious man, a formal man, a man to be taken seriously. The uniform made him want to stand up straighter, to rest one hand on the dueling cane. His hair, slightly curled, long on the top and sides, and blown loose by the wind atop the city wall, didn't fit. Elend turned.
The man he saw now was no dandy of the court. If you remember, we had the exact word dandy used by clubs earlier when talking about Kelsier pre-Hatson. So Kelsier was a dandy pre-Pits of Hatson, and now we've got he's now no dandy of the court. So
excellent mirroring there.
Yeah, I like that. Don't know if it's purposeful, but it was nice to see.
Yeah,
like those words. And also just thinking about also Vin, where Vin had to, when she changed her clothing, that also was part of her transformation, of her leaning into certain parts of herself. Clothing is important, guys. I know it seems silly, as Vin has said, but it does have a function.
Dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Exactly. That's why I'm always wearing pajamas.
Professional bed tester.
Yes, you know what, those things exist, eh? Those kinds of people exist. The mattress influences. Anyway. Anyway.
Elend turned. All right. Cut it. Tindwell smiled, then nodded for him to sit. He did so, waiting quietly while the assistant worked. When he stood again, his head matched the suit. It wasn't extremely short like Ham's hair, but it was neat and precise. One of the assistants approached and handed him a loop of silver-painted wood. He turned to Tindwell, frowning. A crown?
Nothing ostentatious. This is a more subtle error than some of those gone by. The crown isn't a symbol of your wealth, but your authority. You will wear it from now on, whether you are in private or in public.
The Lord Ruler didn't wear a crown.
The Lord Ruler didn't need to remind people that he was in charge.
Ooh, sick burn!
It was sick burn, but I agree, but also disagree, because he had other ways of reminding people. Said, well, the whole way of breeding your people a specific way, that whole thing. Yeah, but that's because he didn't. That was how he reminded people he was in charge. He didn't need to do other kinds of extra subtle things. He was very much in charge, and that is it. That was the proof.
Indeed. Elend hesitated, then slipped on the crown. It bore no gemstones or ornamentation. It was just a simple coronet. As he might have expected, it fit perfectly. He turned back toward Tyndall, who waved for the seamstress to pack up and leave.
You have 6 uniforms like this one, waiting for you in your rooms. Until the siege is over, you will wear nothing else. If you want variety, change the color of the cape.
I love it. Excellent. Elend nodded. Behind him, the seamstress and her assistants slipped out the door. Thank you. I was hesitant at first, but you're right. This makes a difference.
Enough of one to deceive people for now, at least.
Poor Elend is deceiving himself here, I think, for a moment.
Yeah. You gotta fake it till you make it, a little.
Deceive people?
Of course. You didn't think that this was it, did you?
Well, Tyndall raised an eyebrow.
A few lessons and you think you're through? We've barely begun. You're still a fool, Ellen Winter. You just don't look like one anymore. Hopefully your charade will begin reversing some of the damage you've done to your reputation. However, it is going to take a lot more training before I'll actually trust you to interact with people and not embarrass yourself.
Yeah, stupid Elend. Thinking that was enough.
Yay, stupid Ellen.
Elend flushed. Tell me what you plan to teach me then.
Well, you need to learn how to walk for one thing.
Something's wrong with the way I walk?
By the forgotten gods, yes!
Tyndall said, sounding amused, though no smile marred her lips.
And your speech patterns still need work. I can relate. And your speech patterns need work. Beyond that, of course, there is your inability to handle weapons.
I've had some training. Ask Vin. I rescued her from the Lord Ruler's palace the night of the collapse.
I know, and from what I've heard, it was a miracle you survived. Fortunately, the girl was there to do the actual fighting. You apparently rely on her quite a bit for that sort of thing.
Okay, now hold on a second there, Tyndall.
Mm-hmm.
He fought pretty damn hard on the night of the collapse.
Yeah.
I'm taking Ellen's point of view on this one. He's right. He fought hard there.
Yeah, he didn't, he did his best. He knew that the odds were against him, but he didn't care. That was good. Good, Ellen.
Yeah. Good, Ellen. She's Mistborn.
That is no excuse for your slovenly lack of skill. You cannot always rely on your woman to protect you. Not only is it embarrassing, but your people, your soldiers, will expect you to be able to fight with them. I doubt you will ever be able to be the type of leader who can lead a large charge against the enemy, but you should at least be able to handle yourself if your position gets attacked.
So you want me to begin sparring with Vin and Ham during their training sessions?
Goodness, no. Can't you imagine how terrible it would be for morale if the men saw you beaten up in public? No, we'll have you trained discreetly by a dueling master. Given a few months, we should have you competent with the cane and the sword. Hopefully, this little siege of yours will last that long before the fighting starts.
Okay, now I'm going to disagree with Tyndall here again. Mm-hmm. After Jon Snow becomes Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, he trains every day, every single day. And he does get beaten up by Mance Rayder, who's pretending to be the Lord of Bones at the time, if I recall correctly. And I don't think that ruined people's morale. And Jon Snow learned a valuable lesson from that. And if Elend is the kind of person who can keep getting back up despite being beaten repeatedly, if indeed he would get beaten, which he probably would, but hey, he doesn't need to be fighting Vin and Ham. He can fight people at his skill level or just above his skill level to help him, and maybe it would look a bit less embarrassing. But I think it's important for people to see the determination and the diligence and the practice. I think that sets an example in and of itself. Hard disagree with you, Tindwell.
Yeah. I will soft disagree because I can see what she's talking about. So I understand what she means, because in the case of Jon Snow, he is already quite a formidable fighter when compared to everyone else when he gets to the Night's Watch. That's as I remember it.
Better than the boys.
Yeah, he's better than the boys.
Better than the men.
Yeah, he's better than the boys. So there is that. He's pretty good. And maybe in the show they also really overplayed him being a very good swordsman. But just he has that going for him, and then he's improving beyond the level of most of the people surrounding him. So that kind of helps you appreciate his training every day more. That maybe might be a slight difference between how it would look with Elend and how it would look with Jon Snow. But okay. I do agree. I think even especially with the Scar, because the Scar are not very well trained. The men are not very well trained. So maybe from their perspective, you're right that it would look he's doing better. He's not giving up.
And imagine what it could do for morale, training with the king.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I know that happens in Wheel of Time as well. So I think maybe at the moment, maybe in the beginning, it's fine for him to be doing it discreetly, like so he doesn't get beaten up that bad. Okay? Make him decent-ish and then let him train out in front of everybody else. So get the best of both worlds. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's just that for me, like I'm already under the impression that he is, maybe just a little below average. I don't think he's bad. As he pointed out, he was able to hold himself off during the collapse for a fair amount of time before Vin got her medal back. So perhaps I'm a bit more convinced that he would be good enough to show. But yeah, okay, do a few privates just to get him up to speed. Mm-hmm. But I really but really I think don't discount what you can gain by training with the troops and by displaying dogged determination even against opponents who are bigger and better than you are.
Yeah, you can gain respect in that way. Hello, we've got Vin. Vin is just extraordinarily powerful. Powerful.
No, he shouldn't be going up against Vin at all.
Definitely not. No, don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Ham, but no, don't go up against Allomancers because you're not an Allomancer.
Yeah, at least.
Elend flushed again. You keep talking down to me. It's like I'm not even king in your eyes. Like you see me as some kind of placeholder. Tindwell didn't answer, but her eyes glinted with satisfaction. You said it, not I, her expression seemed to say. Elend flushed more deeply.
You can perhaps learn to be a king, Elend Wincher. Until then, you'll just have to learn to fake it.
Elend's angry response was cut off by a knock at the door. Elend gritted his teeth, turning. Come in. The door swung open. There's news, Captain Demio said, his youthful face excited as he entered. Elend cocked his head. Yes? Demio paused and looked Elend over again before continuing. Sent me, Your Majesty. He says that a messenger from one of the kings has arrived. Really? From Lord Set? No, Your Majesty. The messenger is from your father. Elend frowned. Well, tell him I'll be there in a moment. Yes, Your Majesty. I like the new uniform, Your Majesty. Thank you, Demio. Do you by chance know where Lady Vin is? I haven't seen her all day. I think she's in her quarters, Your Majesty. Her quarters? She never stays there. Is she sick? Do you want me to summon her? No, thank you. I'll get her. Tell him to make the messenger comfortable. Demio nodded, then withdrew. So that was not a very subtle way for Sanderson to show that this is a smart decision.
Yes, exactly. I like it. I think Demir is awkward enough for that to be for him to make as much of, for him to react that way. I feel like that's what he is like. So he would be like, wow, kind of thing, and keep saying your majesty, and listen, it is also it's that much of a visible change.
Yeah.
Because his hair, the fit of his clothes, everything, it's like, whoa, you do have, that does happen, seriously. Just any man dressing up, you go, well, you clean up good, man. So, and this haircut, you must look very good. And I can't wait to see what Vin says about it.
Yeah, that'll be quite a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then Straff is the first to respond, which means our wondering how he'll get away with meeting with Straff may be answered sooner rather than later. Here's hoping.
Mm-hmm. And it's not Straff, obviously, just coming to the to visit. Obviously, we are still negotiating when this will happen.
Yes, and as we were told twice, Straff's forces are likely stronger than Set's, so it's probably disadvantageous for Elend to meet with Straff first if he wants to play this game.
Mm-hmm. He's got to. Well, we got to get Set first. Set as well. They're supposed to have both both as an option. That would help, but we'll see how this goes.
Elend turned to Tindwell, who was smiling to herself with a look of satisfaction. Elend brushed by her, walking over to grab his notebook. I'm going to learn to do more than merely fake being King Tindwell.
We'll see.
Elend shot a glance at the middle-aged terrace woman in her robes and jewelry.
Practice expressions like that one, and you just might do it.
Is that all it is, then? Expressions and outfits? Is that what makes a king?
Of course not.
Elend stopped by the door, turning back. Then what does? What do you think makes a man a good king, Tindwell of Paris?
Trust.
Tindwell said, looking him in the eyes.
A good king is the one who is trusted by his people, and one who deserves that trust.
Elend nodded. Good answer, he acknowledged, then pulled open the door and rushed out to find Vin. Yeah, it's a pretty answer, to be certain.
And it links up to Vin's journey of learning to trust people. So it's pretty in that way as well, symmetrical.
Yeah. If she said something like competence would feel like an empty answer.
Yeah, it would feel average.
Yeah. You can't say kindness or good intentions. Those are bad answers. Directness.
But that's all in trust. You can, like, if you trust someone, you trust that they are being direct with you. You trust that they are being straight. That there are.
Well, I think directness would be a good answer. Vision.
Vision is only that can only get you so far.
Good moral values. Well, Elend more or less has them, and he's not yet a decent king. Charisma would not be a bad answer, certainly, but I don't think I don't think it's a uniquely good answer.
I like the answer trust, because it encompasses so much.
Yeah.
And having earned the trust is also in part of it as well. So there's so many bits that go into earning someone's trust, is being competent, because then you are trusted to be relied upon. There is the directness, like you spoke about, because you are trusted that this person is not lying to you.
Forthrightness.
Yeah.
That's basically directness of another word.
Directness, yeah. Charisma is also something that people need to, it helps them gain people's trust.
True.
So, yeah. Very good answer, Tindwell. I like it.
Wisdom. That's the important word. I think wisdom would be a good answer.
Okay, but we don't want, what's that guy from the beginning of the first book? We don't want him to be the king.
Trusting?
Yeah, no, not trusting, the old guy.
Menace?
Menace, yeah. He's got wisdom, but it's not the wisdom we want.
Yeah, I guess he was a bit nihilistic at the end there. So wisdom, forthrightness, intelligence. charisma.
You building
I mean, none of this is as poetic as trust.
Yes.
But it's still a fun thing to think about, yeah?
Yeah. But we will keep it in our hearts as we go forth.
Yes. Good chapter. Enjoyable chapter. I'm excited for the next one.
Yes. I would like to see how we handle this, and can we please just find out if it's Orosure yet? Come on. Please. But also, just that there will be some nice things of just seeing Vin, see him. Maybe Vin's her heart's gonna skip a beat because her man's looking handsome. Who knows?
Oh my. Oh my. Get it, Vin. Is there anything else to say?
Like the video
if you like, and subscribe to That Tongue Kitty as well, because she's great. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. Okay, thanks, bye.
Okay, thanks, bye. And you just don't, and why, Chinsia? I think, I don't know, just reading is not a good thing for me. I'm like, Vin, okay. That is no excuse for your sloughin'.